Well, hi guys, welcome to the jar. It's now 2 months old and everything's starting to settle down. And in this jar, what I'm going to do is just take you through what we've got over this last month. Let's start with the mussels. Now, I did start off with loads of these little guys in there. I think I'm down to about 10 or so now. And they're not very big, they're about sort of 3 to 4 millimeters long. And these guys, they're not only living on the plants, but also climbing around up on the glass. They've got like a little hair which they use to climb around with, and that sticky foot hair thing of theirs keeps them attached. Now these guys are filter feeders, which is probably going a long way towards keeping the water quality really nice and clear in here, as well as these little spionid worms. Now spionid worms, these guys are keeping the bottom of the tank clear by picking up sort of the sediment and feeding from that with those tentacles. Now I think these spionid worms are sand mason worms, and we get lots of these down on the beach, and they do create these little tubes, and hopefully I'll be telling you guys a lot more about that in a later video. But what's interesting is you can see how these guys not only keep the bottom clear, but they also keep the glass clean around them as well, where they pick up the algae and the small animals whilst they're obviously hiding down in their burrows. And you can see this one here has got a lot bigger. It's probably 4 times the size it was a month ago. Now in this tank I've also got some barnacles, and these barnacles on the shell actually weren't there 2 months ago. I've had a look at some of the old footage I've got, and they've popped up, so I'm not sure if they were tiny little things. I don't know a huge amount about barnacles, or whether they have actually sort of self-planted themselves on there. Now the barnacles again are another filter feeder, which also goes a long way towards keeping that tank clean. But on the glass we've got the herbivores. The biggest herbivores on there are the free snails which are in there. Now, although I'd hazard a guess that these guys are some sort of whelk, I've got absolutely no idea, to be fair, and that's something I need to look up. But these free snails I see cruising around on that glass all the time. And whilst these guys are on the glass, obviously they're feeding on the algae, so you get little patches in the algae where the glass is clear, and it gives me a great sort of view down into that tank and allows me to see what's going on. Now in this tank itself, obviously we've got the big animals which are very easy to spot, the barnacles, the worms, the snails, as well as the mussels as well. But there's also a whole community of animals which live on the glass as well, and these microorganisms are absolutely tiny, and it's really hard to see them. In fact, I can't see them with the naked eye at all, and I've got quite good eyesight. But if you have a look on the glass, you'll see what looks like little white dots on there sort of moving around. Now these microorganisms I thought had a die-off, and I thought that these little microorganisms unfortunately were not going to survive that tank. But luckily a few of them did, and they've started to come back. Now these are food for sort of some of the other animals in there, and they also go a long way towards breaking down some of the waste from some of the other animals. But also in here I've spotted another microorganism, and that is these little squiggly worms. Now these little worms are wiggling around, and there's actually a good number of them in here. Now I'm not sure if they are worms or not. I'll have to look up and see if I can find some information on them. But these things move around the glass fairly rapidly, but then also anchor off to the glass and just sort of sit in one space as well. Now all of these animals go towards feeding the worms, the mussels and the barnacles, and the mussels, worms and barnacles, they all keep these animals in check and stop them from overpopulating the tank, whilst these animals then keep the tank clean, and all those microorganisms help to keep that glass crystal clear. Well, unfortunately that's about it for the jar for this month. I'll be doing another video next month, but if you guys have got any comments, make sure you leave them in the comment box down below. Also, if you've not subscribed, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And then I've got a couple of cards, one for the last video of the jar and one for the playlist of all the jar videos.